think, one of my favorite movies in a very long time. And that is Bulbbul, which is written and directed by Anvita Dutt. If you remember, if you've heard our older podcast, I was not a huge fan of the trailer. And obviously, my reservations towards anything released by Netflix continues. However, this is produced by Anushka Sharma and Kamesh Sharma, the Karnesh Sharma, her brother. And these guys are like the guys behind Clean Slate Films, and these guys have made films like Pari and one of the best TV shows from India, that is Patal Lok. And the film stars Tripti Dimri, Avinash Tiwari, Pauli Dam, Rahul Bose, and Parambrata Chattopadhyay. And it tells the story of a man who returns home after years to find that his brother's child bride is grown up in his and is ruling over his ancestral village. Now these people are Thakurs or Zamindars, and she is basically taking care of the family's inheritance. And it has a very supernatural bent to it, and it is kind of being marketed as a horror film. It is not a horror film. First, you have to address that it is not a horror film. What it is it's a fantasy film, and it is one of the best feminist movies that I have watched from India in a very long time. In a year that gave us Thappad and Chapak, I think this ranks on top of both these movies. But that's enough from me. Let's go to Anirban first, and from there we'll go to Hussain, and Arindam and I can join in a little bit later. Anirban,
I don't know.
Your thoughts.
You're right in terms of saying that, yeah, it's a great feminist movie. I would not put it up there because there's one trope that they use, which I personally do not like. It is that in order for a woman to come to her own self, she has to be defiled first. That trope that they use is very irritating for me. And that is something that they use out here. She comes to her own.
I have thoughts about that, but in this scenario, that is justified. But go on.
No, I know what you're talking about. I'm saying it's a trope that is abused in a lot of places, not just Bollywood, but also Hollywood. I'm not talking about the movie in specifically.
Then why bring it up
in general? I'm talking about it in general, that the trope that is being used. In this case, yes, the trope is used. It is used justifiably, which is different. But at the same time, that makes it a little bit, in terms of how feminist movies are, yes, she doesn't discover it on her own. She has to go through this trauma in order to find a strength in herself, which is what the movie is about. And but what you're saying is true. Now, the first thing that I saw about this movie was Anushka Sharma's name and Karnesh Sharma. This is when I started watching the movie. First thing I noticed is that the brother actually believes in numerology. He has added some extra R or extra K in his name somewhere. And wherever I see something like that, I become a little irritated because, I don't know, I think it's the whole K serial thing and Ekta Kapoor thing where I get irritated when I see something like that. But you move on to the first scene, and that itself establishes, the first shot itself establishes what the movie wants to be. It's beautifully made is one of the first things that you notice. There's a lot of attention to the color scheme, the set design, the costume design. It's amazing. The costume design is fantastic. It actually takes you back to that period when all of this costumes were actually were worn. And not just that, and the way that we're talking about this movie, yes, it was marketed as a horror movie, but you can look at it as a very not a romance movie, but a coming of not age, a strength movie, but interlaced with a lot of fantasy and a little bit of supernatural. All of that is fine. The one thing that you will see is that everything moves at a very beautiful place. You see where they're coming from. I think Abhishek and them had a lot of discussions about this movie, and with other people in the group. And I think one thing that you talked about was how it actually is reminiscent of childhood stories that you might have heard, fantasy stories that you might have So in that way, I might not have heard the same stories. Obviously, we have different stories when it comes to some of these some of the stories that we have heard. But not spoilers notwithstanding, we've all heard of the woman who walks with her feet that backwards, right? We've all heard about that. That is not specific to just maybe Bengali folklore. It is something that you will hear in all, say, even
Cultures.
Pahadi. Any Pahadi story will have that, and it gives. They will always have tips. You should run downstairs because they will not be able to follow you. Uh, you haven't heard that?
I heard.
It just takes you back, right? As soon as you
What is
say
this
that,
Tarkovsky's horse shit? Yeah.
it reminds you of those stories when somebody told you that there this woman and they'll call out to you and you have to be careful and all that. But this movie is not about any of that. It tackles a lot of issues and it does it very beautifully. It talks about one. It talks about child marriage at an age where it was probably very, very acceptable. Probably it's still an ongoing practice, as I've been told that it is still a practice that is carried out
Yeah.
on force in a lot of places in West Bengal, Bihar, and even Arunachal, by the way. Arunachal is big on child marriages.
I
And
think it's very. I think it's still very prevalent in places like Rajasthan, etc.
yeah, Rajasthan. I actually knew a guy who, well, he said he was engaged when he was 11 years old, but I think he actually got married when he was 11 years old. And
What the fuck?
yeah, he used to be very sad about the fact because he used to come out with us and he's like, "Meri shaadi ho rahi hai ek hafte mein. I'll drink myself to death," or something like that. Anyway, the guy is happily married now and all. That's beside the point. I'm saying is that this tackles a lot of those things. It shows zamindari very beautifully. I think you've seen. I love those scenes where Tripti Dimri, and I didn't have too much expectations from the actors of this movie, but all of them are brilliant. They actually are brilliant. Uh, even the guy who plays the doctor, I think
Paramruta.
from Rata, I think is famous in his own right when it comes to Bengali movies, if I'm not mistaken, right? And all of them are brilliant because they played a part to the T. Pauli Dam as the conniving uh, uh, small Choti Bahu and then Tripti Dembri as both versions, the expectant, naive uh, daughter-in-law, or the very much aware of what's going on and very strong and sometimes very eerie. When she has those laughter cackles, I think they're very eerie. Tripti Dembri does a brilliant job. I think Rahul Bose, who plays two roles in this, and I think he does both of them brilliantly. I think as the understated elder brother and Mohendro, and as the younger brother, I think both of them he plays them brilliantly. And uh, I have to eat my words on that one because I said that I was not expecting too much from the actors. I'll take that back. I think the actors did brilliantly. They elevate this movie, which is not just a movie full of beautiful shots and and a story that it's pretty well executed, but also they have acting that elevates that whole thing to another level. One problem I have is with the screenplay. It's not as taut in all places as it can be. I do not actually I mean, the ending could have been much better, but then again, I do not come from that point of view where I can speak about it because I'm sure that Abhishek and Anandam may have a different point of view and they may be able to enlighten me on why that makes much more sense because I've heard them speak about it on the group and maybe they come from a different point of view, which I'm sure will be much more will help us understand somebody who's not actually well versed with a Bengali folklore that these guys are. So I think that's what I'm looking from you guys to so for some more sense on maybe some context as to explaining that ending.
Yeah,
Right. So before I get to that, Hussein,
should read out
your
the
initial thoughts.
comments, right? First, before we get to
Yeah.
the
Can we? Yeah. Let's just quickly go to the comments. Uh, Shavik, first time commenter. Welcome to the show, Shavik. In Bulbbul, the relationship between Satya and Bulbbul kind of reminds you of the relationship Ravindranath had with his sister-in-law. That's absolutely true, and that is the first thing I also noticed. And I said on the group as well that it's very reminiscent of Ravindranath's real life, issues that he had.
Even the
He
work.
also says it's not a supernatural. It's more of a supernatural film rather than a horror movie. And Snehathatha, he reiterates what we've been saying. It's mostly a fable. Anvesha says this movie has a plethora of different Tagore-esque stories and settings, not just one, which I agree. Sudeep, of course, says, I'm just happy to know my name has been around for centuries, of course.
Dr. Sudeep.
Dr. Sudeep. And Snehathatha says the character arc is inspired by Devi Chodurani, and this story arc is from Noshtunir. I agree with the second bit, but the first bit I have my own thoughts on, but we'll get to all of that once Hussain gives us take. Hussain, your initial thoughts on Bulbbul?
Yeah, so as everything has been said by Anir, I stand by everything that he said. That it is a beautifully made film. It is technically very superior to the kind of Bollywood cinema that we are made to watch. The cinematography, the background score by Amit Trivedi, everything is good about it. But according to me, in my opinion, the story could have been a little better because it falters towards the third act, and it could have done better with a little bit of mystery in it, because if you watch closely in the first 30 minutes of the film, you get an idea of who the perpetrator is. Can I go into the spoilers?
I guess it's safe to go into spoilers. Arindam, what do you say?
Yeah. I think it's okay. Okay, we'll have spoilers. So if you want to avoid any spoilers before going into this movie, here's your 5-second warning. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Go, Hussein.
You are now entering God country.
Kajol is the killer. Now listen.
Yes, Kajol is the killer. That is the biggest spoiler.
So when we are introduced to this Dr. Sudeep, he is sitting with Bulbul's legs on his lap, and he is tightening this weird ass looking shoe, and he's tightening the laces around it. So
Weird
you get
वैसा ही होता है जूते.
it was quite pointed, and it looked quite tight.
It was
तब के जूते वही होते थे. अच्छा, anyway, go on.
So it gives away the mystery that anyone who's been watching these kind of movies, good movies, would understand that this woman is perhaps the Chudel that the movie is talking about. So, and you also get this non-linear type of direction where the focus shifts to the past of the teenage Bulbul, and there is a difference between the attitude. The teenage Bulbul is very shy and she is playful, and this Bulbul is like Anir said, she is eerie and she is having this cackling laughter. She does not feel like a human. So I thought that it could have been better. This could have been portrayed as a mystery, and that is my opinion.
I think, to be fair, if you already have an inkling about who the Chudel might be, or if there's another word, is there another word for Chudel in
Which
the thing is, again, spoiler warning. She's not a Chudel, and I will tell you why she's referred as a Chudel as well. But before we come to that, Arindam, your initial thoughts.
Yeah, regarding that Churel bit, it was interesting that in the subs, because I always have subs on for some reason, they do not use the word witch, they use she-devil or something like that. Devil woman, sorry.
Devil woman.
So, yeah, so that is what I found. I found that to be like weird why they weren't calling it the witch directly, because they were clearly calling it Churel. And in Hindi, Churel has different context. It may not be the witch that we're used to in English folklore.
No, it's not. Chudel actually rarely refers to a witch, actually, in Indian folklore.
It's
It's more of a ghost entity rather than a witch.
Yeah, correct. And that is where I think I'll jump to the ending bit. So I agreed that it would have been more artistic if you showed, like you didn't show her final form to speak of in the closing moments, and rather if you just heard the whisper. But again, this movie was not interested in telling you that kind of a story. At the establishing shot begins with us knowing that the feet is backward for this supernatural entity, and then the opening shot of that character is that something is being done to her leg. So the director is not interested in keeping a mystery. I think that is how folk tales, that at least the Bengali folk tales are structured in a way so that you do not have the M. Night Shyamalan twist at the end. You exactly know where it is headed. It's clearly established right at the start, and I thought that was done well. I was surprised to find out that I think the director isn't Bengali. I expected, someone who took so much inspiration from Bengali mythos and made it into. I think Anvisha mentioned in the comments that it takes its inspiration from plethora of places like Rabindranath Tagore's stories and folklores, and even the myths
I
and
am
the
so
legends that are
disappointed
over
in
here.
you. I am so disappointed in you. You are talking for like 5 minutes. You're talking about influences. Not once did you
Let
mention Thakur Julie.
let me come to. I'm not done. Thakumar Julie isn't like I at least was never into Thakumar Julie. I because I am cinephile. The first thing that I said after seeing the first shot is that ये तो भाई Coppola से पूरा लिया है. This movie is in love with Coppola because that the character is like a Jonathan Harker archetype. So he comes in the exact same carriage that you see in Bram Stoker's Dracula, like the color scheme, the way it is shot, it's the use of the widescreen. It's like taken. It knows its cinematic language. It doesn't take its inspiration just from mythology. This is the kind of Frankensteining that I like. They just don't take it from one mythos. पूरा story से लेगा, folktale से लेगा, myth से लिया, movie से लिया. It's from all over the place, but it's fun beautifully. And in the establishing shot itself, you kind of know that where they are headed, what they want to do, and this is why I kind of like that they did not have that twist right at the end. They told you what was going to happen, and the final form that we see at the end of the movie is, that it's the payoff, basically saying that this person isn't just something that people should be scared of. She's almost like a forest fairy who protects, like in the Miyazaki movies that you see. So this is what I took away from the movie. Also, a special mention or recognition should be given to Siddharth Devan. I mean, that guy is the cinematographer for this movie, and he has like done wonderfully. He was there in Queen as well, and a lot of movies that Chintu Ka Birthday also he was the cinematographer. So he has some
Trapped as
strong
well.
Trapped as well. So very strong credentials going in. This guy, he knew his job well. Probably one of the best cast members to have around. Uh, I mean, I just want to see a BTS shoot of how they actually, achieved all that thing, because this is something that Netflix should release after the weekend is over. Next is the set designer, of course. I think name is Meenal Agarwal. Uh, so we have mentioned the phrase "every frame of painting." I think more than anything else in the group for the past couple of days. And Meenal Agarwal is like the primary reason. She's the one who made these elaborate sets, and the CGI was so well used in this movie. Half of the shit that you see in the back end doesn't just exist. Someone was mentioning about the architecture. Do you remember? It was Grecian or thing. So we had that entire thread about what kind of buildings were being used and if they actually exist. I think they do, and this is one of the wonderful things that they did. The sparing use of CGI was amazing. I actually even like that last part where they went full Jungle Book with the ending, because it made sense with what they were doing. Just the color scheme. It's the look of the Churel is essentially one of the parademons of Kalima, right? Dakuni.
No.
I I
Not the,
think
it's
I
not a
forget
demon.
it. It's not
Yeah,
the demon. It's one of a
it's
roof,
it's a
right?
form. It's a form of Kali.
Yeah.
So basically, what? So let me address Hussein and Hussein's misgivings or issues of the film. See, the thing is, as soon as the movie, if you watch the credits of the movie, The movie just not shows a woman, a rose opening up to a woman as the title comes across. If you notice it again, it opens a third eye. Right, if you're paying attention, you know exactly where this movie is going. This is not a story of a woman being possessed by a demon. It's a woman being possessed by a god. And this is a mythology which exists in the Bengali culture. It's a specific thing. I can't speak of anything else, but this is something which happens in the Bengali culture where people have been known to be possessed by actual gods. That is A. B, as soon as the movie starts and you see the feet, right? The little girl comes down and walks into a tree, and that's when the shot ends. So they have been dropping hints right from the beginning, and that's exactly it. See, like Arindam also mentioned, and we had this conversation as soon as we watched the movie as well. Bringing twists to films is an inherently Western concept. Indian stories don't usually have twists, especially the stories which have been told for generations, not even decades. These stories don't have twists. They establish right from the get-go who's the good guy, who's the bad guy. There is a king. The king will rescue the princess from the bad guy. That is the basis of our mythological texts. So bringing a twist at the end, making it full Game of Thrones or Sherlock, that is an inherently Western concept. So this plays out like a fable or a folk tale from days gone by, and that is something which I love. I do not care about twists. I don't care about overly wrought stories which have a payoff but is immensely unsatisfying because there are so many plot holes. That is one. And secondly, what I love is if you rewatch the films, and I would love to know if you guys also feel the same in the comment section. If you rewatch the film, you will notice that only the men and a woman who is an ally to the men refer to this person as a chudel. Everyone else deifies her. It's established when the guy has her feet on his lap and he's tying her shoelaces, and when she's holding court. So it is already established that she is someone who is deified. She's being treated like a goddess. Also, she enters a temple, and when she enters a temple, you see that people are telling her that something is going wrong. Please help us. Please rescue us. So all the women and the children of this area knew basically who she was and what she was. This is a woman who has been established in the movie as well, that she doesn't leave this place much, her property much, but she goes to the temple where a part of her is being worshipped. So this, I think, was brilliantly done. I am a sucker for these kind of stories, and I thought this was one of the finest horror films or finest fantasy films made in India. I absolutely loved every frame of Bulbbul. This is just a fantastic film. It just blew my mind as to how many dimensions that this movie goes to. And what is more interesting is if you listen to the interviews of these people, these people really wanted to just make an honest film, and that's something which at least Arindam and I do, is we watch these films, and we watch, especially Bollywood, we watch the film companion interviews with the cast and crew, and these guys, they just talk about this exact same thing. We just wanted to tell one small story, and I thought they did it brilliantly. Now, can we go to the
going to the comments? Shreya says that the folklore of Chudel has undergone some changes. Example in Stree. It's very interesting how they're the myths that we have come to know, how they're changing that in Bollywood movies. I really like this because it's very original. I feel like they're definitely, like I said, they're Frankensteining things. They're taking from many places, but they're creating something entirely new and something that we aren't used to. And this is why movies like this have a very different. I don't know why, but I'm checking out, the mainstream public opinions on these movies, and for most of the movies that I find very interesting, I don't know why, people just shit on them like crazy. Bulbbul is being shit on. Bulbbul is being shit on like anything. They say like the movie doesn't make sense, pehle se pata tha, twist and all that. Because
they're not looking for that kind of a movie. They're looking for a typical blockbuster movie, which is usually what happens. Formulaic movie. Let's not call it a blockbuster movie.
Yeah.
Call it a formulaic movie. They're looking at formulaic movies, and this is not a formulaic movie. That just breaks the mold in a lot of ways. in terms of how it's shot, and in terms of how
It's a
the story
fantastic
is.
genre movie. And speaking of the things, why it was shot. Let's talk
No,
about the use of red.
Before that, there are a few more comments. Snehartha says that the empowerment through Kali, her character's 360-degree turn, is reminiscent of Devi Chodurani, which is why the comparison. Also, Shreya says that saved and possessed, empowered too by the goddess. So,
I think
yeah,
she also talks about
Yeah.
Kothanodi, which
Yeah,
is an Assamese movie. Kothanodi
I haven't seen it.
actually
how is
is
it?
inspired by a very popular Assamese folklore.
Oni Baba.
Not just that, Tejimola. Tejimola is also something that
Yeah.
features. So it's kind of like an anthology series in itself, Kothanodi. Right? Kothanodi is
Stream of
River of
nice.
Stories.
Yeah,
Stories.
stream of stories, river stories. It's a very nice movie. It was there on Movie Saints. I don't know if it's there now.
I think it's still there.
It's the same director who made
Of Amis.
who made Amis. So you can catch that
Yeah,
movie. It
definitely.
also has Adil Hussain and also Seema Biswas also in one of the roles. So it's something that you can watch. But these are the kind of movies that actually should be should get a lot of attention because they're based on folklores. These are folklore stories that we have heard as kids. Tejimola, every Assamese kid will know. Whether or not he has lived in Assam or not, every Assamese kid will know. Just like the stories that you're talking about, are stories that we'll know inherently as Bengali kids. Obviously there'll be other folklores for other regions. Every state will have their own folklores and all, and these are all oral. These are orally passed down. So there's no actually documentation of a lot of this folklore. So it's nice that some of this do get translated onto the bigger screen, or even if it is a small screen, they do deserve to be translated in that form, because I think that makes for a much better form of preservation in that sense. Of course, it depends on how you do it, but that's why Bulbbul is good, because it does a good job of doing the same thing that I'm talking about. It does a good job of making sure that it's translating a lot of those folklores, not just one, but a lot of them, and translating that so that it's preserved. And not a lot of movies do that. I mean, the last time you remember you had something like that was Junoon, and that was a terribly, terribly bad movie.
Last time we had a good horror movie, that was Tumbar. I think Sudeep also says that Bulbbul and Tumbar are two of the finest horror movies that he has seen recently. I think coming to
Also, one last thing with just a addendum to what Arindam was saying about she becomes possessed and she becomes this thing. So this thing in the Bengali culture is known as a dakini. So it's basically, to use, for the lack of a better word, and for all my Marvel fans out there, she is a herald, kind of Kali. So basically, what happens is, if you are a pious woman, if you're a good and innocent woman, and if you die during great distress and at a particular time, you are Kali gives you part of a past or slash possesses you. So you take on Kali's duty as, because she is the avenging god, the goddess of death. So you inflict that wrath on people, and you are basically her right hand. So that's inherently what she becomes, and that is probably why. And once she leaves the mortal coil, and that is probably why she can transform, she can appear and disappear.
Yeah, regarding Anir's complaint about it being that sort of a revenge flick, I think it falls into that genre. It isn't exactly not taking cues from Western mythology, because we have already established that they had the visual language down to the point. But over here, even that is what they also got inspiration from. So I guess that genre of being like a revenge themed story, that's already established. We have had the Khoon Bhari Mangs or the I Spit on Your Grave. So that is there, but just taking this having this Indian mythology twist into it is something that I found to be admirable.
And there is one last bit before we go on and talk about the color schemes and the cinematography. The ululating at the end, when she appears from the embers, and there is that ululating, that hits the nail on the head. Like, you can't get more unsubtle than that. If you've met a Bengali, or if you've gone to any Bengali function or a puja, you know exactly what is going on. That is done to invoke the goddess. So she is completely has become a god basically. So I thought that was done fantastically well. Let's talk about the red scheme, the way the shots are and the use of colors, especially red and blue to establish different moods. Hussein, let's start with you. What did you make of it? Did you like it? Did you hate it?
I loved it. I loved everything that is technical about this film. The cinematography and the color schemes and the sets and the background score. Everything is so much superior than what you see in Bollywood movies, as I said earlier. Uh, uh, I would like to add. I would like to ask all three of you, which was particularly your favorite shot cinematographically. Coming to you, Arindam, which was your favorite shot?
The first one that like won my heart when the horse carriage was being pulled, and then there was the large tree and it crosses that and it's completely red. I just like lost my freaking mind. That was just brilliant. Regarding the color red, so this is something incidental and very that things that only me and my brother can relate to really. We have a Kali temple in our para, in our colony. तो रात 8 बजे के बाद वो बंद हो जाता है and you know they just have one light on which is the color red and you can just see that thing on the Kali.
By the way, I've seen this.
Yeah.
I used to stay in Rinja.
So
I've seen it.
So yeah, red, if you remember Abhishek, the red bulb is the only thing that after 8 o'clock you see in the temple.
That is because red in
Yeah,
our
there's
culture,
more.
Yeah,
I think
red in our culture. Can I go on or no?
let me finish then you go.
Yeah, sure.
Yeah. So the red over there, I'm not sure if they had so much planning going in, but just that, you know, image, it stuck to me. Also coming directly to this film, the use of red is because of the hibiscus flower, the joba fool that we say, it's Kalima's, you know, signature flower. That redness, I think, was intentional when that character was being hit by Rahul Bose in one of the most brilliant uses of slow-mos that I've ever seen. And what follows instantly when she's grasping for the camera, you know, when they make the point that, you know, she has to go that much more into to make that experience more harrowing. So those two shots were also like one of my favorites. So if you notice that when they hit her, those red splashes, they fall into the sky. I thought that is also a callback after the rape that takes place and she's possessed, and that is when the moon turns red. I think those things were like symbolic links.
The blood splashes on the portraits of the gods. I noticed that on my rewatch.
Yeah, it does. So the thing is that red, even if you see the again going back to the opening shot, because everything you need to know about this film is the first 10 minutes. Even when she's walking, you will see that her feet are red. Alta, you know, we call it alta, and that is used for in occasions where you're you know, in happy occasions and stuff like that, you know, when you're celebrating and there is a puja happening and all of that, and that is used by the women because it's supposed to be ornamentation. So that's so that is one of the biggest reasons why the color red was used, because that time when the every time they go into that village and it's lit in that eerie red color, that means that place is under the protection of the god. It's a very interesting thing at the end when Rahul Bose finally comes back to the house. It doesn't have that red hue, and then the moon comes up, and then the house is strewn again in that eerie red hue, and then she comes back. That means that area is under her protection again. I thought that was fantastically done.
Also, this in the comments they mentioned the blood moon, which I found it to be fascinating because again, this movie is a very good mix of Western and Indian influences.
Yeah,
Blood moon, we all know, we have seen it multiple times in every horror movie. In Avatar, also, I guess that planet is something is about to happen right at the end. I can't recall. Yeah. The entire thing goes. So we know that blood moon exists, like in Twilight, of course.
Abhishek, he watched this, so he should know. He's the expert authority.
Yes. The Volturi will come, man. Anyway. Next.
So yeah, using the blood moon and also using it in this context, it just made sense. It was wonderfully. This is why I had no problems with the screenplay at all. The story, especially, it was like
Can I
wonderfully
say
done.
one thing on that? So my thing was at first like I was a bit unsure because whenever they had they shaded the whole screen in red. One thing was that the whole thing looked like a set. Like if you look at it, the first scene itself, where they're taking the carriage to the bungalow or palace. Uh, when it's the last scene before the dawn actually happens. It's a very stark difference. Like it becomes very realistic. Before that, it just looks very much like it was shot on a set in a studio somewhere, and then the next drone shot actually refutes that whole thing. So that thing was a little bit difficult for me to get used to. But I think that whole thing makes it's much more relevant in terms of the greater movie and becomes you not just get used to it but you actually start liking it as in when the movie progresses. At least that was the case for me. I don't know about you guys.
What Anil? What was your favorite shot? As I asked her in the.
I think the slow-mo shot was actually one of my favorites. I mean, it was done so brilliantly. I mean, they don't actually focus on showing the actual violence, but they show the actual violence. It's so
Enough.
beautifully
They show
done.
enough.
Yeah, they show enough for you to be graphically moved by that whole visceral. It's very visceral in that sense, but it's done in such a tasteful way that you know enough of how much how much violence is in that scene, and that's brilliantly done. For me, that was my favorite scene.
And Abhishek bhai, aapka?
I will give a long form answer because I will talk about the colors. And the colors in this movie play a very central role. We've already spoken about red and what it means. Uh, Before she becomes the way she becomes at the end, you will notice that most of the scenes with Bulbbul and I mean with Tripti Dimri and all of these shots before she becomes the way she does at the end is colored in a very blue slash greenish way, and the shots which are taken, she is in the center and the shots are from a distance, where just to establish that how lonely she is and how out of place she is in this place. She doesn't wear the ornaments that Pauli Dam does. She doesn't wear any of she doesn't behave the way she's expected to behave. So the color scheme of blue establishes that fantastically, and that is also signified by the dialogue that they have in the lake house, where they say like, why don't I paint this blue so that it reminds you of where you grew up. Excuse me. But she says that no, it would just let it be the way it is, decrepit. And I think blue signifies that, and also the shots in the forest towards the end in the climax, where everything is in the hue of yellow, which signifies betrayal, and which signifies that how Satya, despite all of his bullshit and being the entitled man that he is, thinks that what his family and he has done is justified because they are men. And that entire shot of where the entire screen is a slash is a mix of orange and yellow. I thought that was also well done. But yeah, so these three color schemes, these three primary color schemes are the three which I absolutely loved. And the cinematography we have spoken.
By the way, there's
pains
one
about it, I
more.
mean.
There's one more that I really like, which was after Satya and Rahul Bose. They leave for Kolkata, and there's this woman who is really lonely, and every time you see her going towards the window, there's this establishing shot where they have the Tipri Dimbri stand by the window, but you have a lot of after shadows just
Correct.
moving across the scene. I thought that was done brilliantly. That establishes that she's been waiting for a very long time, and she is actually waiting. This is something that has affected her greatly, and she's not ready to give up. So she looks out expectantly, not just for a moment or so. She does that every single day, and that I thought was brilliantly done. The use of CG in that,
the passage of
brilliant.
time. I don't think it was CG also. I think they just like spliced up two scenes together.
Yeah, but you still have to give it a shadowy effect, right? For that, you
Right.
still have to make it. You have to use a little bit of CG. CG doesn't have to be over the top, right? I think that's why it's brilliant, because it was done in such a good way.
My favorite scene was when Rahul Bose leaves the house and the camera goes up with the rain falling down. And I think that it does not have a deeper meaning, but it was just the genius of Siddharth Diwan. And because you cannot decide whether the raindrops are real, is that real water or is that CGI? So I thought that was brilliant. I loved that scene.
Yeah, the movie, I think, if you have to sum it up, it is poetry. It's poetry in motion. Basically, it's just beautiful. I mean, even as much as I love Tumbad has that gritty sort of, very fucking Del Toro shit happening. That twisted fantasy fairy tale of brought straight from Guillermo del Toro's world. This is something which is just classical. Yeah, this is just brilliantly, beautifully made, and there is no higher praise that I can give to the entire team than they have just made one of the best movies of the year. It's highly, highly recommended from our end. Please go out of your way to check it out. If you don't have time, make time and check out Bulbbul on Netflix.
Sadly, like Arindam said, that it's getting a lot of shit.
Yeah, I was going to address that, because I think that most of these Indian YouTube reviewers, they don't have as much access, or they haven't watched as much good movies, good cinema as you three or all of us in the group, as we might have seen. They might have seen a few good Hindi movies, and that's about that. I don't think they might have watched good horror movies or good fantasy movies, so they don't have an
Three
idea.
Idiots को अच्छा मूवी कौन बोल मेरे को वो दिखाओ पहले.
Yeah, I enjoyed that movie.
Three Idiots मार्चो सबसे चुतिया मूवी है.
So I
Okay,
enjoyed that movie. I mean, see, it doesn't have to be a great movie for you to
No,
enjoy
basically
it.
why I named
I'm
Three
not
Idiots
talking
is
about
because
it.
most
So,
of these reviewers, they will, in the same breath as say a Sonchiriya or a Tumbad or Aakho Dekhi or a Kamyab, they will say Three Idiots भी कितना सही movie है.
see, that's from a different point of view. You have got to understand, from a filmmaking
Suddenly
perspective.
Kunal Kamra क्यों हो गया था?
यही मैं भी बोलने वाला था.
From a filmmaking perspective and from an entertainment perspective, there can be different sort of value that is derived for everybody.
I don't have. I think Three Idiots I really like. The only part I didn't like was when they invented YouTube out of nowhere. That is the only problem that I really have.
I thought that I liked the movie also, but that
YouTube
Please watch it again. I will ask.
I don't want to watch it again. I will spend my time watching other shit like Dark, which you don't have enough attention to give.
No, it's okay. It's okay. For entertainment value, I don't think it's a bad movie to watch. You can watch it. Whether you enjoy it as much
Before,
as
very quickly, let's get to, and we can tie up Hussein's point also here. Hussein, तेरे को जो बोलना है इसके इसी के साथ tie up करके बोल देना. Shreya says, what sort of response this film could have got if it was released in theaters?
I thought flop, big flop.
Yeah, it would have been a flop. I mean, see the response, something like a Sonchiriya and a Tumbad. People don't watch.
Tumbad got a very good. It was in theaters for I think more than a month.
Yeah, Tumbad was a success, and Sonchiriya was did average business, I guess. But this movie would definitely have been a flop because of the shitty reviews.
Not just the shitty reviews. I think it's just
most people wouldn't understand क्योंकि horror की तरह market किया है और मिल रहा है fantasy तो एक वो भी
exactly. This movie's trailer wasn't cut well, I think.
No, it wasn't.
It put all of us off, right? I think that's a problem.
Did not like it, and we were just excited for it because of
Clean Slate.
Because of Clean Slate.
Because Clean Slate है तो अच्छा होना चाहिए.
And some of the scenes in the trailer honestly look good, but
it was cut weirdly.
Together very badly, yeah.
So it is safe to say that Clean Slate Productions does not cut good trailers because
Patal Lok had one of the worst trailers, and I think it's good. We went in with low expectations, and it turned out to be so good.
Pari's trailer sucked. Patal Lok's trailer sucked.
Yeah.
I think it's good.
NH trailer was good. NH trailer was good.
As long as they don't have a good trailer but a bad content, like I think we are okay with it. Utna chalega. Because NH10 is one of the best slashers that India has ever produced.
What was I about to say? I forgot.
NH10.
Not NH10, yeah, something about, yeah. So coming back to the interviews that I've watched, Tripti Demri, you feel so bad for the poor girl. Yeah, she says like, "Mera last movie was in theaters for 7 days, and I have gone to watch for all of the 7 days, and in total there must have been only 25 people who have watched this movie, and apparently it's very good and it looks good. I mean, I watched the trailer.
I have seen, as Anir started his thoughts about Bulbbul. I think that not many people have seen Laila Majnu, and that movie gave us two good actors, Avinash Tiwari and Tripti Dimri. Tripti Dimri did not have much of a role. Avinash Tiwari shined in that movie. So it's not that good movie. It might be problematic because it justifies that stalker.
अच्छा
रंजना वाला टाइप है क्या?
हाँ थोड़ा सा वो है तो लेकिन एक्टिंग जबरदस्त है उसमें बहुत जबरदस्त. The songs are also very good.
This girl became famous for a viral video. Like I said, she did one of those monologues what is the name of that guy, man, that did that monologue and got really famous?
Kartik Aaryan.
Kartik Aaryan.
It's that kind of a monologue. She did that on, I think, one of her own YouTube channels, and that got really big. At least in Delhi, it became really big. It was being shared all over, and I think that's why she got discovered. That's why she was discovered. I think it's a good thing because she does have a lot of good things, and I think she shines in comedic elements. I think she'll do even in comedic elements, from what I've seen.
By the way, we didn't talk about two aspects. How did you guys like Rahul Bose in this movie?
Oh yes, Rahul Bose was fucking fantastic.
बहुत जबरदस्त.
When is he like not
is an actor who I deeply admire because he is. I mean, watching Rahul Bose at a time when we did in the late 90s, early 2000s, this was the time of Salman Khan and Shah Rukh Khan. And among all of these people, he was the one who was so articulate. And I think you also mentioned this on the group that he's still so articulate. He says the way he talks and the way he carries himself, it's just so refreshing to watch. And he has no qualms about him not being a huge star and all of that. He just wants to do great films. And it just comes across that way, and he's always been that way, and that is something which I always admire. I don't think I've watched a bad Rahul Bose film. Especially, I think the one with Mallika Sherawat was decent.
Pizza.
Yeah,
I haven't seen Pizza, but वो trailer देख के मैंने. And he'll have no problems admitting that it was a shitty movie which he made for money. That is like one of the best things about him. Rahul Bose.
So Rahul Bose I thought he was fantastic. I think Avinash Tiwari was a little bit. I think the weakest part of the movie was Avinash Tiwari because he had nothing to do with it.
He did not have much.
He had a quick heel turn. I think many of them mentioned that suddenly he becomes. I thought, the way Pauli Dam was like amazing in this movie.
Yeah, Pauli Dam was my favorite performer of the movie.
So they established that she was poisoning the men's ears. So when that heel turn came, Avinash Tiwari, I didn't really mind because they had already established that this is something that she's capable of. And obviously, after age, like she was playing that, widowed woman, but she still had all those mechanisms going on. Ki kaise aur ungli kar sakti. So
I think that's something where she's dressing up the injured.
Yeah. Where she actually has a redemption arc.
Like in one scene, you totally sympathize for that character.
Yeah,
it's so well written.
And I think Pauli Dam also is like another actress who is brilliant in whichever movie she is in. I mean, I think I watched Hate movie.
I still believe Hate Story is really good. It's like a Sidney Sheldon movie come to life. Like मैं theater में देखा था because we were in an engineering college.
Tharak. #Tharak.
Yes. There is no Tharak. This was the only Hindi movie because of Tharak. Maybe the people they put it up. I studied in Karnataka, where this was literally the only movie which played in the theater over there. Middle of the 30 minutes into the movie, light भी चला गया. So we were there. 1.5 घंटा हम लोग रुका, ठीक है. But we completed the damn movie. And it was, to me, I still believe it was like a Sidney Sheldon, novel come to life. I really liked the performance then, and this is like I think the second movie of hers that I've seen.
There is another movie which she came out with last year. I can't remember the name of it, but Yeah, I watched it. Usually nowadays, when if I don't go to Shillong, I go to a couple of my friends' place. We drink and we watch Bengali films because that's what we do. So last year, when I had not gone home, I had watched one of Pali Dam's films. I can't remember for the life of me the name, but yeah, she was fantastic there also. I think she's a very good actress, and I'm really glad that people like Rahul Bose and Pauli Dam are not restricting themselves to Bollywood. They are uh, going to regional cinema. They're doing international projects, and that is something which I'm really looking forward to in the years to come. So I think in every way, this movie is fantastic. It comes with the highest recommendation. Please go ahead and watch this movie. It's streaming now on Netflix. I think it's already ranking in the top 10s. I think it's
7.
it's
I think it was 7 or something.
yeah, it was.
No, sorry, Dark was 7.
It's something like that, but it's already trending on Netflix. So please go ahead and watch that movie, and please, let us know what you guys think. Arindam, go to the comment section before we go wrap this up.
Yeah. One more thing that I wanted to say is the director, like Anvita Dutt. I think she's someone to watch out for. This is a directorial debut, and she was also behind Queen, and also Student of the Year, I think. So, thoda hota hai. Like
She has been a good
mix of art and things. Yeah.
She has been writing good lyrics.
So, that poetry abhi dikhta hai in film. I'm glad she's doing that. One thing that I really want is for her to collaborate with Juhi Chaturvedi and give us something awesome, because I think those two would be a good pairing.
Juhi Chaturvedi deserved है Shrodit Sarkar के साथ. जो सोचोगे शुजित सरकार बनाएगा. And that duo is perhaps if they continue working, will be the new duo Salim Javed of Bollywood. अगर वो आगे काम करते हैं साथ. That is my opinion.
Salim Javed का lot of stuff doesn't hold now. I hope that.
हाँ, लेकिन मतलब but for then, that time.
For then.
Influence at least.